Hey Flosstube, it's Lori of Mischievous Stitches. Welcome to my channel. I'm back again this week to share with you my newest finish, to answer a few questions, a new start, and also just something I thought you may be interested in that I wanted to share with you. So I'm going to start off the best way I know to start off this video this week is to show you my finish on Rose Quaker. Isn't she gorgeous? I used the called for threads, which are all DMC. I stitched it on 40 count platinum linen, one thread over two linen threads. I started this last year at Natasha Stitcherella here on YouTube, and Donna. I think her channel is not D-squared anymore. I will link Donna below. Sorry, Donna. I don't remember the name. But we started this last year as a Quaker Stitcher stitch-along. And I got just a few of the motifs in the top left-hand corner done. And didn't pick it back up until but a couple of times during the year. Well, I decided that this year will be a year that I knock down some of my whips. And this is the first whip from my pile that I will finish for this year, and I'm very excited about it because I think it's a beautiful finish. Even stitched on 40 count, she's a really big girl. The only changes that I made to this piece, other than the fabric choice is my own, it is not the called for fabric, is I added my grandmother's name and her birth name and her birth year. So thank you for sharing, and a lot of you cheered me on this one. A lot of you were enabled. It's been a really fun stitch. I've enjoyed it, and I couldn't think of a better way to finish this piece than by adding my grandmother's name, especially as this is her birthday was the beginning of this month. So I'm happy to have this. I'm happy to have it finished, and I look forward to framing it really soon. But I'm going to give you one more look. I will say there is one thing that does interest me. See the really light peach motifs in this piece, like right here and right here. That is stitched with DMC 758, and I don't know if I've mentioned it in my videos before, but you know, we typically use the 758 DMC when we're stitching skin on a mirabilia, or just, it's a skin tone color. I never fully appreciated that color until stitching this piece with it. I'm going to give you another look. I think it looks absolutely beautiful stitched as a motif. I never would have chosen DMC 758, but it works, and it works really well. So I'm going to, hold on, let me lay this down. Okay. So I did make a new start last night as a leap year start. I don't know who initiated it. I did see that on Instagram last night. My plans were originally to finish up this large piece and because it was a whip, and then finish up a small whip. So last night I pulled out a piece that I had received at the Sampler Guild of Georgia Retreat last year. I think I shared this with you last video, but this is Heartstring Samplery Queen Bee Pincushion. And I thought I was going to give it a start, and I realized, due to my hand, I can't hold the hoop, and it's such a small piece that I can't put it in the hoop that I've been using to stitch on Rose Quaker. So what I ended up doing is just putting this aside for now, because I am going to get that strength back in my hand. I'm telling you right now. I'm claiming it. So I went ahead and made a start with this piece, which is the Fall. The Serpent Beguiled Me and I Did Eat. It is by Barbara Anna Designs. I've had it in my stash for some times, and I decided to make it as a new start. I love this piece. I have never seen anyone working on it, and other than this picture, I have never seen one finished. So I'm going to be discovering this piece as I stitch it. I did download this from Creative Poppy. What is it? CreativePoppy.com. I will put the information below, but I downloaded that pattern. Like I said, it's been some time ago. And so I had it already kitted up, and I am stitching it on 40 count Ren with the call for DMC threads, and there's not very many threads. There's like, excuse me, there is maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 there. Probably closer to 15. And this is where I got last night. It's going to turn out really pretty. There is buku of words. And I don't dislike words. I stitch letters all the time because I love samplers. But let me give you a look again at the top. I'd say the top 1/3 of the pattern is mostly words. We'll see how that goes. I think it's going to be slow stitching. But anyway, I'm looking forward to working on that. So I don't really have much progress because I just started it last evening, and I have finished up Rose Quaker. So I'm going to continue to work on that piece this week and probably in the coming weeks because I'm kind of limited. I'm having to stitch with my non-dominant hand, which is my right hand, and I'm getting really good at it, which really surprises me. But I'm unable to stitch where before I stitched with my left hand because I'm left-handed. I'm stitching with my right, but it's working. I'm able to stitch. Someone did ask me in my last video if I had been crocheting. No, I haven't. Unfortunately, I cannot crochet right-handed. I just can't. It really is just one of those left-hand, right-handed things. I can watch a YouTube video with someone crocheting right-handed, and because my left hand is the same as theirs on the screen, even though they're facing me, it is their left hand they're stitching with, I can easily pick it up. But when I go to stitch right-handed, I can't do it. I don't want to say can't. Can is a negative word. I tried and was unsuccessful at crocheting with my right hand. So once again, I'm going to give it time. My hand is healing very nicely. A lot of you have asked me about that and said you have me in your prayers, and I want to thank you for that. I have, of course, a loss of muscle. The strength, there's just no strength there. And when I do try to, I'd say nervous twitches, maybe muscle twitches. If I'm using one finger, then one or two of the other ones just start jerking. It's really odd, but I know that's because it was trauma. So my hand is healing, and like I said, I'm very happy with the results. When I had it, when it first happened, they were worried that my wrist would be frozen because I not only broke the bone, the broken bits went down into and split my bone, as well as there was a lot of, as my doctor said, crumbles there as well. So I impacted pretty hard. And so with all that being said, I'm saying that to say positively, I'm doing much better than he anticipated me doing, which makes me very happy. And I think a lot of it's just, I'm for the most part, I'm strong-minded and a little bit of an overachiever, just a little bit. So when they say this is where we think you're going to get, then I push myself to get past that. And so I'm still working to do that. I'm going to therapy and will continue through the end of April to go 2 to 3 times a week. And it's working. It's working. And a lot of you also said that as well, that the therapy is the key. And you girls and guys that gave me that information, it's very true. I can tell there's been a lot of results from therapy. But enough about that. So, speaking of that, along those lines, what brought me to that is stitching with the other hand. Not being able to use both hands like I normally do, or to stitch, because normally I stitch in hand. I do use the hoop frame, but I stitch in hand using my left hand, and I can't do that yet. So at the moment, this is what I use, and it is an LBC table clamp. This clamps onto the table, and then the hoop is here. And so you see why I couldn't work on my pin cushion, because it's in a hoop, and this is the hoop I need to be able to stitch with my right hand. Because I don't know about all of you, but normally if I'm stitching with a hoop or I'm stitching with a Q-snap, then this hand has the Q-snap and this hand is doing the sewing, back and forth, front and back. And I can't do that. So, this is the frame that I use, and let me look real quick. The person who asked about that was A. Foley, and she asked if I use a stand, and at the moment, yes, I'm using a stand with a good old trusty hair clip there to hold my fabric up. But I normally stitch in hand or on this hoop, especially if I'm at a retreat. I also take this stand, but unfortunately that clamp does not always fit on the tables that I'm sitting at. Okay, Monica, let's see, Monica Cox asked me about retreats. I had mentioned attending retreats in one of my past videos, and I would have to say, you just have to listen to Flosstube. You're going to learn about all the retreats at Flosstube. I know there's crossstitchretreat.com, which is Katrina Boyd's cross-stitch retreat, which she does go up and down the eastern side of the U.S., as well as down into the Gulf. I know there's going to be others. There's local guilds, EGAs, which is Embroiderers Guild of America. They have chapters all over the United States. You don't have to hear about that word of mouth. You can look on their website. Just look up Embroiderers Guilds of America, and they're going to tell you by state the local guilds. But mostly where I hear about it, it used to be from Flosstube groups, not Flosstube, Facebook stitch groups, but I very rarely go into those groups anymore. I do a lot of interaction on Instagram as well as Flosstube. And for those that are looking for retreats, just keep your ear open and ask questions. You're going to learn all about them here with your friends on Flosstube, because we don't want you to miss out, and we definitely don't want to miss out, so we will spread the word. Also, let's see, JAS262 asked me about stitching, if she thought that, if I thought that she could stitch Rose Quaker on an even weave. Absolutely. Even weave is just a different type of fabric. The difference between linen and even weave is that just what the name implies, that the weave of the fabric is even, is evenly spaced. Linen is a natural fiber that the fibers themselves may be bulky and fat in some places and skinny in other places, but yet for the most part they are what do you call them? The threads are pretty even for the most part, but there are issues with, you call them slubs, big little lumps of fibers. So that's the difference between the two. Is even is going to give you the more even stitches if you're used to stitching on Aida, if you're used to stitching on even weave, and that's where you're comfortable and that's what you like. If that's what you want to stitch on, stitch it. It's all about the stitching. There's no rules here. It's what you feel comfortable with, what makes you happy. But I don't think that there is any pattern that will not lend itself to both even weave and linen at the same time. So if that's what you enjoy, go for it. Stitch Rose Quaker. Even weave will be just as pretty as the one I just showed. Also, let's see, market. Everyone's talking about market. Everyone's a buzz. It's happening. It's about to happen this weekend. I'm sure we'd all like to be a fly on the wall or walking around with these shop owners and designers, visiting with the designers up in Nashville this weekend. But I have had a lot of fun just looking at the market releases from Brenda Gervais, from Beth Twist of Heartstring Samplery, and Scarlet House knocked it out of the park. I had no doubt Tanya would knock it out of the park, but this year she knocked it out of the park, and I just love her designs. And then you have Teresa Kogut, who first time sampler designer, and she absolutely knocked it out of the park. So for these to be the first samplers that she has designed, I can't wait to see what comes from her in the next few years. So Teresa, girl, you knocked it out of the park. Love your designs. And then I'm going to share with you real quick a new purchase I made. And this is called a pressing mat. And a lot of you may already use it. I heard about it from a quilting friend. It is made out of wool pieces that are layered. There's 5 or 6 layers of the wool pieces. And it's a natural fiber, so with the heat of an iron, it also heats up these patterns, these layers, and it will kind of press your fabric from the front and the back. I can only share with you what little I know about it, because it's let me show you. It's just a small little mat. It came with this Teflon hot pad for my iron, and as you can see, it is just pressed layers of wool. I will say that because it's a fiber, it's a natural fiber, that you don't want to use it, say, on your dining room table. You want to maybe use it on a surface that it's okay to get moisture, because once you iron on it, beneath it, moisture will accumulate because there's moisture in the fibers. It doesn't matter if you use the steam or not, it's just from the fibers. As far as pressing, I think it does a really good job. I like the fact that it's pressing from the when I press my needlework, I always put it face down, because I don't want my stitches pressed. I want the fabric pressed. And so in a normal situation, I will damply or have a damp towel on the ironing board, and then my face down stitch piece, and then a towel. And then I press behind it. So you've got the moisture coming up, and then the heat of the iron, so it kind of easily presses the front. And I know everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's going to make your threads bleed. I've never had a problem with it making my threads bleed. Not once have I had a problem with that, having my threads bleed. But I was looking for something else. And like many of you, I've watched Donna Ray's video with Pat Ryan concerning the ironing, and I learned a lot from her. But I don't have a very thick pad, as she suggested, on my ironing board to iron my stitch pieces. And as well as that, because I do use it to iron my clothes, there's over time you get a buildup of the starch and things on my ironing board. So I wanted something that was specifically for my stitching. Instead of buying a whole new ironing board, I just bought this pad. I can use it anywhere. And very, very rare. I do stitch big pieces, but I can still use this to iron them. I can, I may have to move it around a little bit to get all the corners and the nooks and crannies on my big pieces, but this works well for me. And then it's not doesn't have that dual purpose of also ironing my clothes. So if you have any other questions, I will link this below as well. I've not had it long. My friend Pam told me about it. I've used it a few times. I do like it. I'm glad I bought it. And I thought I would mention that to you too. I'm sure if I'm not the only one that's concerned about ironing their needlework on the ironing board, and that wanted something separate for the needlework, that you may be too. So there's this. So in the coming week, I'm going to be continuing to look out for all the market releases and all the hoopla about market. And I'm going to continue to work on the fall and share all that with you on Instagram. You can find me there by my Flosstube channel name here, Mischievous Stitches. I'm pretty active. I try to post something just about every day as far as my stitching goes. And I hope you all have a wonderful week. I hope you get in lots of stitches. And until next time, hugs and stitches. Bye-bye.